Assalamualaikum dan salam sejahtera. Anda sedang menonton Agenda Awani dan di era pandemik ini, eloklah kita melihat pada norma dan kebiasaan baru dan salah satunya, saya perlu berbicara bahasa Inggeris kerana tamu saya yang hebat sedang pun menanti dalam talian dan we're going to talk about a gamer's dream. COVID has wreaked havoc all over the world, but there are silver linings for certain sectors. In Malaysia, we know about the rubber glove company. One of the top rubber glove company is going to be just so short a bit more to beat the biggest capitalized stock at the local boss. But one other thing that interests maybe a wider set of audience, especially the demography of 18 to 35 years old, would be the esports or online gaming. And if you look at all the statistics around the world, even publications, serious one like The Economist, has talked about how pandemic has managed to actually spur esports ahead. And one clear example, if you look at the numbers, the rise of esport audience and live streamings of gaming and people watching gamers playing, in Southeast Asia, it's said to be about 26% year on year, beating even maybe the global average. One really big name that is synonymous with the explosion of PC gaming before, Wild Rift, now is a new version that you can play on mobile, and it's from Riot Games, from the League of Legends. I must confess, a bit past the age of their specific target group. I've seen it being played, I've never played it. So we're going to have Riot Games Justin Hulog online, and he's going to, while talking to us like old people like me about what League of Legends is going to look at the new normal in the era of pandemic and how esports is actually a lifesaver for many, not just as a product, not just as a service, not just for a gamer's dream, but when you're cooped up in your own house, in your own room, that's just your active window of interest to the world. Justin, welcome to Agenda Awani.
Thank you for having me, Cameron. Hi.
Oh, I said that right in Tagalog. Of course, Justin has Southeast Asian roots. But he's been all over the world, and now he looks as a general manager of Riot Games for Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Justin, I'm just going to confess, I confessed earlier that I haven't played League of Legends, but I've seen it thanks to online videos, you know. I like the Desert Queen Warrior, that's going to be my pick. She's kick-ass, pardon the language, I shouldn't say that on air. Was my intro correct? Is it really, from your perspective and Riot Games numbers, since COVID-19, you see a massive uptake, especially live streaming online, of esports? Is that true?
Yeah, I will say that generally speaking, we've seen a spike. I'll also say that, you know, we at Riot and for our games, for League of Legends and for Valorant and now Wild Rift, you know, we're certainly not immune to the disruptions that have been caused by the pandemic. I mean, esports also has a pretty strong live component, and a lot of those events have had to be canceled. You know, however, we've definitely seen that there's been a lot of engagement, especially from streamers, especially from sort of the online digital experiences that people are looking for. You know, as people are cooped up in their homes, they play more games, they watch more people playing games. They are more interested in sort of engaging with the experiences that we have to provide.
Yeah. Justin, I want to bring it a bit higher of a perspective of creative content seems to go really well during COVID, whether it's, you know, movies being streamed online, whether it's live concert online. And just recently, if we look at an IPO at the stock market in South Korea, Big Hit Entertainment, which manages, you know, the phenomenon called BTS, it goes up on the first day to nearly 10 billion US dollars. I mean, who would have thought creative content or creative content related matters like that, unless you're a big blockbuster Hollywood studio, for example, that's going to reach that far. And big hit is from this side of the world in Asia, North Asia. That for Southeast Asia, we are really one of the best in the world for esports and e-gaming. Can you tell us the Riot Games emphasis on this? Because if I look at how you guys sort of introduce League of Legends, while Rift, for example, Southeast Asia must be thankful for that because we are one of the luckier ones compared to other parts of the world to see it first.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that I have been super excited to bring Wild Rift to Southeast Asia. I think that it's been something that's been really exciting for us. I guess like one of the things that I would highlight is that here in Southeast Asia, there's a lot of focus, I think, on mobile experiences and mobile games, and a lot of excitement to try out mobile products. Wild Rift, for example, we had our alpha here in the Philippines to start, right? And a lot of the development of that game, a lot of the reason that my team even exists, is primarily to think about how to create mobile experiences that resonate well within our markets and within this region.
Justin, just to step a few steps back, just for those audience of this show that haven't really seen League of Legends and have not really even know any of it. I mean, you didn't start out your professional career in the esport gaming community, right? So maybe you can go back in the time tunnel and tell us why suddenly that you jump head on, full on into e-gaming and esports, for example, and maybe through your journey, I don't know, maybe a friend over a drink said to you, hey, there's this opening at Riot Games, why don't you join? You say, what? Something like that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit about my journey. So I was born in the Philippines, grew up mostly in the States. Like many kids, I spent a lot of my youth playing video games. But as kind of time progressed, I decided that I wanted to focus on other things. Started my career actually in management consulting, where I focused mostly on sort of digital and entertainment. After that, made the transition into ad tech, and I realized that for quite a while, like a lot of my spare time was actually spent playing video games. I would play video games on the plane. I'd play video games as stress relief. I would hide playing video games from my friends. It was one of those things where I just realized I was spending a lot of time in this world. And at the time, Riot Games was looking for someone to come who had sort of the skill set that I had to come and oversee strategy for Southeast Asia. Basically, a recruiter had reached out. I had looked at it and I was like, this is something that I want to do. And that's how I ended up kind of working where I am now.
Justin, battle arenas, maybe for those who watch mixed martial arts like, the MMA, and we're proud in this part of the world that we have one FC, a multi-billion US dollar valued franchise of that. And that's not just too far, it's just down in Singapore, and that's how they started it. But battle arena for esports, I mean, hands down, is League of Legends, for example. And but the challenge is now moving from, maybe I can get your inside expertise on this. Before PC gaming is PC gaming, right? Maybe a decade ago or 15 years ago, and I think Riot Games and League of Legends came out in 2009. But now, mobile is mobile and mobile and mobile. That's what we keep hearing people say. And while Rift is a testament to that, moving from, die-hard traditional origins of PC to mobile. But how would different platforms like this really change? Because even if we go to the old industries like car manufacturing, left-hand drive and right-hand drive, you can't build them from the same production line. It needs a totally different approach. And is it the same for, let's say, PC and then migrating it to mobile or mobile in that sense?
I would say yes and no, but probably the thing that I would want to highlight is that in the past, it used to be that PC games were and in many ways still are kind of the gold standard for gaming experiences, right? And that was the platform for which you would design quote unquote serious games, you know. And it used to be that mobile was a platform that was primarily focused on sort of more casual experiences. And what we're finding is that in both the world of PC, mobile, and console, the experiences and the expectations of players on how high quality those experiences are is steadily rising, and especially here in Southeast Asia, right? People don't just want a mobile game to be a port from a PC game. They want to have the same sort of quality experience and the same attention to detail and the same sort of focus that goes into the creation of PC games into mobile games. And so I think that what's happening is, and where it's the same, is that the same expectations around craft, the same expectations for the type of talent that's working on games, the same care and detail that's historically gone into PC and console game launches is now being expected of mobile games.
Okay.
What I'll say is different, however, is that the scheme of playing on mobile is very different, right? So, like, for example, I'm a relatively old gamer, you know, and when I play games, I play like this with my thumb, you know.
Right. Yes.
My nieces and nephews, for example, when they play, are actually used to playing like this, so that their pointer fingers actually can affect a bunch of things on the map, and their bottom fingers are actually the ones that are moving the game.
Okay.
This sounds very simple, but actually has pretty radical sort of changes in terms of how you think about the design,
Correct.
how you
Yes.
think about the scheme.
Yes.
And mobile native players have very different expectations and higher standards for how you need to design. So you sort of have to design for both old folks like me and design for my nieces and nephews. A very different expectation, you know?
Justin, if you all, I'm ancient, you've just, given me the answer why I never make it to be the champion of my PUBG battles because I'm still using my thumb to fire. But never mind. Let's go for the first break. Then I'm going to continue with you. But before that, just throw us an astronomical figure of what the industry is valued at right now.
Well, I think in Malaysia alone, for example, I think there's 20 million gamers just in Malaysia, and I think that those gamers spent something like $673 million on games last year alone. And globally, the industry, there's just enormous potential there. I think we're kind of in the billions of dollars range now. I definitely think that one of the things that's important to think about is that when you think about where people are spending their money and why they're spending their money, gaming competes with all forms of media. It competes with television, with movies, with all of the traditional sort of avenues. And so when you think about what is the opportunity is anywhere where a player can give their attention.
Did I get that right? 20 million gamers in Malaysia alone?
People who identify as
spending about
gamers,
600 million US dollars times Malaysian ringgit, let's say it's 4. Oh, that's 2.4 billion ringgit. My God.
Right.
Justin, so you don't go anywhere. We're just going to go for a short break. Once we are back, we don't just want to be users in these parts of the world. How do we go into the supply chain? And that's why I was asking you about the different platforms from PC to mobile, because maybe PC we think we've missed the boat a bit, but maybe for mobile, there's new talents that we have in this country that can go into the supply chain and be partners or vendors or whatever it is. So right after this short break, jangan ke mana-mana, kita kembali dengan dunia e-sports dan juga Justin Hulog. Hi, you're still watching Agenda Awani and we're still talking about the new normal in the pandemic era. There are silver linings economically, like for esports, and we've been talking to Justin Hulog, the general manager for Riot Games in these parts of the world. And before the break, he threw out the number of 20 million, active users like that, and $600 million of what they spent just last year for e-sports or e-gaming in Malaysia. And imagine Southeast Asia. So, Justin, I'm going to go back to you. And these parts of the world, we know China is a big force also when it comes to e-sport. I mean, my makeup artist who did my makeup just to be looking nice as young as you on this show, she beats me hands down at this PUBG thing. And, so is there a chance for countries like Malaysia in Southeast Asia to move from a business perspective and entrepreneurship perspective into the supply chain of esports and gaming?
Absolutely. I think that the opportunities are boundless. And I would say that even though I am deeply embedded in the gaming space and the esports space, the full range of potential opportunities, like I can't even begin to describe them yet because I'm not quite sure that we know fully what exactly is going to happen and what the opportunities are. I'll give you an example. For example, it used to be in the past that concerts were things that were in-person events where artists would perform in person to people, right? And people would go to a concert. Now there's spaces where people are actually going to concerts in digital spaces, in video games, watching those concerts, right? And that's where especially in this world of COVID and the pandemic that we're in, where people can't be physically in the same space, those digital spaces actually have created an entirely new supply chain of vendors, of production artists, of folks who are just working to kind of get involved there, right? And so there's a lot of white space, I think, for folks to get involved. And I definitely think that a country like Malaysia, which is very much a mobile-first country, which does have a lot of understanding of sort of like how people play games, there's lots of spaces that people can participate in.
Justin, this is, new days and new areas and territories, and we've just looked at one of the biggest low-cost flying airlines that has now turned themselves into at least a regional super app. That's what they want to do. So it's possible for, a channel like Astro Awani to work with you and Riot Games, this part of the world, and to work with them and create a whole new thing, like a blue ocean of gaming plus entertainment plus creative content and other stuff. Would you, as general manager in Southeast Asia, because I'm trying to cast the net wider here, not just for gamers, really be open to those kind of possibilities? Because, hey, it's time for these parts of the world to come up with new stuff and new things too.
Oh, absolutely. And I definitely think that as we have been expanding in the region, we spend a lot of time talking to different folks and the different potential partners about ways that we can work together. It's not just about, I think, like your gaming focused partners, like say a Twitch, right, or an Omelette Arcade, whose job is really focused on catering to gamers. I definitely think that when I was a kid, for example, I think that the question was, are you a gamer or are you not a gamer, right? And being a gamer was a very niche product. I definitely think that in the younger generation, with my nieces, with my nephews, with many of the players that I work with, the question is not, are you a gamer? The question is, what kind of game do you play? Correct. And because there's that mass appeal, any sort of partner that has broader reach and broader capabilities is a partner that we'd want to work with and that we'd want to partner with. What I do think is the question, though, is around the gap in understanding, right? And so an example, for example, is my aunt, who I love very much in the Philippines, is almost, she's almost 80 now. And I swear, she has no idea what I do.
Okay.
Right? So, like, to be able to consume content in a way that makes sense,
yes,
she really enjoys the things that are around our experiences. So, for example, we just launched, something called KDA, which is like a music video or music experience that comes out, right? Those are the things that she connects with. Yes. And so I'm trying to figure out how to help folks that aren't necessarily in the gaming space connect with gaming content.
Correct. Great. You know, I'm going to pressure you on air to give me maybe a 5-minute online, you know. We could have a we could have a Teams or Zoom meet and, you know, to pursue that more. But for this discussion tonight, right now,
I'm not a pro gamer yet.
I'll play one time while read for you. Inclusivity. I know not many people, you know, like to talk about this. Sometimes they like to talk about the numbers, the opportunities, the money. But one thing as an Asian, for me, in the early days of gaming, you know, PS1 and PS2, for example, console game was first in these parts of the world before PC. It's the soft side, it's the creative side. You know, when I play shooter games, I have to shoot Muslims and Asian, and they are always the bad guy. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, as simple as a user, but it carries grave impact to the mentality of the world where, you know, we have movements like Black Lives Matter. I like football so much. I watch EPL whenever I can, and they always take a knee, you know, to commemorate and have solidarity with BLM, for example. But in gaming, do you see it changing and you having the unique position of having heritage of DNAs from this side of the world and also, you know, being there in the United States of America, how do you think gaming and creative content can play a role in making the world a better place? It's because if you have millions of people or billions of people now online or live streaming and playing together, how can we use that to also instill good values and make the world better?
Yeah, I think that we have the same responsibility that any mass consumed media has in terms of thinking about ways to be inclusive, in terms of ways to think about how we help a broader group of people feel included, you know? And much the same way that I kind of think that you can look at the progression of sort of representation in, say, movies, you know, where greater awareness led to better decisions around casting and sort of better representation of various groups within movies and representation of women and representation of minority groups. I think that we in gaming also have an obligation to really kind of think through representation while also recognizing that we are a global product that has to cater to sort of global perspective on mutual respect, right? What I will say within Riot is that what we try to do, especially with our characters, is to use our characters as a way to show many, many different kinds of stories and voices, right? And I think that when we are able to kind of use that as a platform, it helps people to kind of see different kinds of stories that can kind of come into play. One thing that I sort of also want to proactively address is that, you know, I think that it's no surprise that at times people sort of talk about the toxicity that sometimes happens within video games and the toxicity that happens across different communities. And that's something that I personally think about and really hope to kind of shift and change as we think about Wild Rift and think about the ways that we are making sure that the community that builds around Wild Rift is competitive, excited about the game, is just as engaged as they are with League of Legends, but also that it's a kinder community that lets different kinds of people in, that doesn't shut anybody out, that allows people to play regardless of not just sort of like ethnic or gender lines, but, you know, also depending on skill level, that's those kinds of things. Just a place that's a fun place for many, many people to participate.
Okay. Justin, I want to delve about that a bit more, but it has to be for another time. I only have a few minutes left. So I want to talk a bit about the future. I know it's not a zero-sum game. You always like to choose Singapore, but it's not zero-sum game. It's a virtual world. You know, the fun part could happen in Malaysia, for example, just across the straits. So, I mean, it took about 10 years for Riot Games to really, you know, move to sort of the next phase of looking at new titles and stuff like that. So you are right at the beginning of that. So what would the next 10 years be, and would mobile be at the center as compared to the origin before when PC was at the center? What is it and what are you looking for, and how can we in this part of the world help make Riot Games better for the world?
I think here in Southeast Asia and here in the Singapore office. First of all, we have an office in Singapore, but it's really a Southeast Asia hub, and we serve all of the countries that we work with and all of our players, I think, equally, right? I think that the things that I think about for the future, we definitely want to put a bigger emphasis on mobile in this region. We definitely want to figure out how we create stronger mobile experiences. But I think we're also looking beyond that and looking beyond games and trying to think about things like, we recently announced that we're doing an animated series called Arcane, which is coming out. We are exploring things within music. We're exploring ways that gaming can become the center of sort of the gamer lifestyle. And I think that the thing that's most helpful is that is to get as much input as we can from all of our players around what kind of experiences they want to see so that we can try to build them for us.
Justin, never enough time with great people. It's the same for you. But before I leave you, I just want to say that, localizing and customizing it to fit the players of this region is really a good idea. And I think you guys are thinking about that. So when the travel restrictions are, lifted, please do come over to this site. I'm going to introduce you to the best fruit in the world called Musang King. It has thorny skin, and maybe that can be part of a weapon in League of Legends or whatever it is. But my favorite is still the Desert Warrior Queen. So thank you so much, Justin Hulog. I'll bug you online for 5 minutes, e-meet, just to catch up on the things that we've spoken about. And thank you so much for, being part of the Riot Games team in Southeast Asia. See you again.
Thank you, Kamil. Have a good day.
Terima kasih kepada Justin Hulog dan Riot Games. Terima kasih kepada anda telah menonton. Itu satu perspektif. Ya, ada banyak berita yang meresahkan kita dewasa ini. Tetapi sekurang-kurangnya dalam bidang ini, kandungan kreatif dan juga permainan e-sports, anda boleh melihat potensinya dan anak-anak muda negara juga kini boleh melihatnya secara serius untuk bukan saja permainan tetapi sebagai punca rezeki dan kerjaya. Sekian, selamat malam. Terima kasih. InsyaAllah kita jumpa lagi.